Hey, this is Gary Collins and Heath Squier of the Primal Show, and today we're going to be talking about food labels and how confusing they can be, especially for people starting out. The easiest way for you to derail what you're trying to do is not understanding the products you're buying. Me and Heath are realists. We know the beginner is not going to go out and go get grass-fed beef, organic vegetables from their local CSA, and start this process right out of the gate. We know more than likely they're going to transition and be using foods that they're used to at their grocery store. So reading food labels is critical, especially in the beginning. Don't you think, Keith?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a food manufacturer, I've become an expert over the last 5 years, specifically working with, we use Medallion Labs. We send our products off to that lab, and they chemically break it down in order to give us our nutritional information. And through that process, what I learned was about net carbs, and we make a lot of low carb products, so that's really important. And I also learned about starch, which is actually hidden on the nutritional information panel. And today we wanted to talk about how to look for starch in products and also net carbs, and the reason net carbs would be valid. And net carbs are basically you can take in this instance our favorite product, a can of beans, and I use this today because it's got net carbs, but it also has a lot of starch in it. And starch and sugar both can create fat in the body, but I'm using this product today, not that I consume legumes, but specifically because I want to show the starch and net carbs. And you get that by taking, in this case, 24 grams of carbohydrates. You deduct 8 grams of fiber, and that gives you 16 net carbs. And beyond that, if you wanted to figure out the starch, you would also deduct the sugar, in this case 5. And that would give you 11 grams of starch, which is basically the same as, you would add that on top of the sugar amount. So you have 16 grams of sugar basically in this can. And 11 of those are from starch. And would you agree with that statement, Gary?
Absolutely, and you're right. That was a good point to bring up, that starch is hidden. And starch, as we know, and when sugar is converted in the body, it always has to be converted to its simplest form before we can assimilate it within our digestive system. And for most people, they think that just because they're eating a complex carb, that's better for you. In the end, it's just broken down just the same way into simple sugar, just like starch is. It's the same thing. Your body has to break all sugar and carbohydrate components down to its most minuscule form in order to be able to absorb it into the bloodstream.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into net carbs a little bit more today too, because there's a lot of mystery surrounding it, and there really isn't anything mysterious about it. Basically, for every gram of fiber, you have 1 gram of carbohydrate. And a lot of people don't realize that. And that's why in this instance, the amount of carbs that actually would affect your blood sugar would be determined by these 8 grams of fiber offsetting the carbohydrates. And they offset it on the label because for every gram of fiber, you have 1 gram of carbohydrate. And it's really easy to do that. And on low carb products, what you'd want to look for instance, is maybe a product that has 10 grams of carbs, and let's say it has 7 grams of fibers. That gives you 3 net carbs, and the 3 carbs that can actually potentially affect your blood sugar.
Yeah.
And Gary and I like to preach, I don't know about you, but I like to look for products that have 10 net carbs or less at any given serving. And I always look for products that have fiber in them. They help curb your appetite, but specifically, I would say in a whole meal, I like to consume no more than 10 net carbs. I eat a pretty low carb diet. If you are going to, take in carbs, make sure it's from vegetables. My favorite being broccoli.
Mine too.
But this whole thing about starch is really important to read because it's the missing nutrient. It's that missing nutrition fact on the label, and it's so common. And that's the starch can absolutely wreck your blood sugar. And then all of a sudden, instead of burning fat as energy, your body starts burning the sugar and the carbohydrates you're consuming. And that's something that so many people, That's why so many people fail, I would say, on their weight loss journey to reaching their ideal weight is because they wreck their blood sugar, they're consuming too much starch and too much sugar.
Well, and they're used to, and I was guilty of this as well, is the first thing you look for on a food label is fat. That's the first number you read because it's almost, I believe it's always the first nutritional fact on there. And we've all
Right.
been, over years of brainwashing programmed to look at that first, and I would never look at carbohydrates and sugar. I'd always look to see how much fat. If it was low fat, I was on it. And I'd buy it, and, a lot of people make that same mistake, and they actually gain weight doing that because through our principles and our teachings and what I write about is good fats. Good fats are what you want to ingest, and you want to keep your carbohydrate and sugar levels low. And when you ingest true carbohydrates, which are your fruits and vegetables, primarily vegetables, nuts, and some seeds, those always contain fiber. And you'll have soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Your soluble fiber is the fiber that breaks down within your stomach and actually slows down food's digestion in your stomach. And then the insoluble fiber will speed things up through your intestinal tract. But what that does is it acts as a prebiotic. That's what all your bacteria feed off. The probiotics have to have prebiotic, which is the insoluble fiber. So understand that. So the insoluble fiber, and they both slow down the absorption of sugars, natural sugars. Even, if you're anything you eat, I always tell people if you're going to go for it, make sure and eat something bad. A way to offset it is to eat something that has natural fiber in it prior. Don't use this as the way to eat cookies every day. It's something to do if you're thinking about it. Just go eat a salad or something with broccoli or cauliflower, carrots that are high fiber before you go eat that sugary snack, and it will lower the impact on your blood sugar.
Yeah, and Gary, if you were to take a plate of food and splice it up into different parts, being meat, vegetables and fruit, maybe some nuts in there, how would you break apart like a 100% plate?
For me, I usually eat half my plate by volume and by size is usually vegetables. Like a whole half my plate is vegetables. And usually a quarter of it is my protein source, my meat. And the other quarter will be a mix of nuts and fruit that I usually have afterwards if I'm still hungry. I don't necessarily have, seeds or nuts or fruit with every meal. As a matter of fact, I eat very little fruit. I don't eat a lot because,
Right.
all the nutrients found in fruit can be found in vegetables,
Right.
minus
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
sugar and fructose. So, that's one thing to look for and try and use these tricks. I wouldn't say tricks, but they're just ways of understanding how you absorb and process sugar and fiber.
Yeah, I mean, when formulating, I really before we put together a product, we get all the nutritional data sent to us first, and then I can actually start creating a product based around the initial carb. So it's very easy all of a sudden to create a low carb product because you get to see all this nutritional data ahead of time, and then by blending certain products together, that's how you get a low carb product. And I love working with fibers. There's some great fibers coming onto the market today. I'm really excited about some of the new projects I'm working on, which are basically taking fibers from some of the greatest ingredients and then mixing these together to create things like, bread and everything else that would be paleo. And fibers are such a great way because they curb appetite. Yeah. And they have very little starch or sugar or almost none. And what you want to look for is an almost equal fiber to carbohydrate ratio. And the closer those two numbers are, the lower carb that product is.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you set yourself up for success is by consuming a high fiber diet that's just got a lot of great vegetables. Once again, broccoli being the best. And specifically, broccoli for men is amazing and women, but it has something called indole-3 carbinol, which actually reduces estrogen in the body. That's the key component. I mean, broccoli has a ton of great health benefits, but that specifically is why if you're looking to get lean and cut, broccoli is amazing for that specific reason. There's probably no better vegetable for just shedding fat than broccoli. And you would be surprised if you have broccoli, like I would say once a day, for every day for 2 weeks, you will have a noticeable change in your physique. And especially if you're following a low carb diet in conjunction with broccoli, I think you'd see incredible results. I know you would because I actually did that. So
yeah, well, we got off on a little tangent there, which we like to do, but it's good information. Back to food labels, as far as just the basics of food labels.
Thanks, Gary, for calling me out on that.
You know, you got off there. You got off track. I had to bring you back.
I know, I'm
reel
sorry.
You back
I'm so
in.
excited about broccoli.
You know, hey, I love broccoli too. I eat it almost every day. So with the food label, I also have a blog post that gives you the basics of reading a food label. I put it together, and it's not real all-encompassing. It's kind of a cliff notes to what to look for, that you could probably print it out on a page or two and take it to the grocery store with you to kind of understand what everything means. But probably one of the most important facts you need to understand is on the ingredient side is the first ingredient. And that first ingredient, and it goes sequential far as the first, second, third, fourth ingredient, that is the most of that by weight. So that first ingredient, say it's broccoli. Let's just say that, since we like broccoli. Well, in a product, that means that per weight, broccoli is the most abundant in that, or I should say the highest weight within the ingredients list. So the next ingredient's going to be by weight less than broccoli. So that's a good little trick to understand too, right? You know,
yeah,
look
absolutely.
for that first or second, third ingredient, because sometimes sugar is 2 or 3 down, or high fructose corn syrup. Well, that means there's a lot of it in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if any good food manufacturer will always list it from most to least in regarding the ingredients. But I think that's about it. We can post a link to what you put together there in the body of this video, so people can go right to that page and learn a little bit more information about what we talked about here today. But we just felt this was so important to bring to people because I think so many people are clueless and they hear this word net carb or low carb or and it's so easy to completely wreck your blood sugar. And after spiking your blood sugar, the next thing you know, you're not having that great sustained energy through the day because you're spiking your blood sugar and you may not even know it. And this is specifically why. It's because the starch and the sugar are oftentimes completely wrecking your blood sugar. So.
Well, and I'm sure we've both done it, and that's where it comes from. This comes from experience. And food labels, let's face it, they're tricky for a reason. It's to dupe the consumer, because for the most part, because if you understand a food label, 99% of the items you see in your grocery store, you're probably not going to purchase.
Yep.
So, well, we hope this helped, and you get some more useful tips. And if you have any further questions, you can email us at Gary@theprimalshow.com or Heath@theprimalshow.com. And make sure to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page so you can get updated, and it'll let you know when our new videos come out.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you all soon.